Ritam adhikartam avaputu brahasta. Dhritarata charam vyayat chalagur. Hare eva hantam abhijamya. Sunigamam apahaya matpritigyam. Vitam adhikartam avaputa brahasta. Mataji's. Sunigamam apahaya matpritigyam. Vitam adhikartam avaputa brahasta. Vita vita charanam vyayat chalagur. Hare eva hantum evam akatotariya. Swanigamam, own truthfulness. Apahaya, for nullifying. Mat pratigyam, my own promise. Ritam, factual. Adhi, more. Kartum, for doing it. Avapluta, getting down. Ratashta, from the chariot. Drita, taking up. Rata, chariot. Charana, wheel. Abhyayat, went hurriedly. Chalagu, trampling the earth. Hari, lion. Iva, like. Hantum, to kill. Ibham, elephant. Gata, leaving aside. Uttariya, covering cloth. Sannyasis have these uttariya, you see these things, that's called uttariya, covering cloth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. Purport. The Battle of Kurukshetra was fought on military principles, but at the same time in a sporting spirit, like a friend's fight with another friend. Duryodhana criticized Bhishmadev, alleging that he was reluctant to kill Arjuna because of paternal affection. Etc. cannot tolerate insults on the principle of fighting. Bhishmadev therefore promised that the next day he would kill all 5 Pandavas with special weapons made for the purpose. Duryodhana was satisfied, and he kept the arrows with him to be delivered the next day during the fight. By tricks, Arjuna took the arrows away from Duryodhana, and Bhishmadev could understand that this was a trick of Lord Krishna. So he took a vow that the next day Krishna would have to take up weapons himself, otherwise his friend Arjuna would die. In the next day's fighting, Bhishmadev fought so violently that both Arjuna and Krishna were in trouble, Arjuna was almost defeated. The situation was so tense that he was about to be killed by Bhishma Dev. The very next moment, at that time, Lord Krishna wanted to please his devotee Bhishma by keeping Bhishma's promise, which was more important than his own. Seemingly, he broke his own promise. He promised before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra that he would remain without weapons and would not use his strength for either of the parties. But to protect Arjuna, he got down from the chariot, took up the wheel of the chariot and hurriedly rushed at Bhishma Dev in an angry mood as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He dropped his covering cloth on the way, and out of great anger he did not know that he had dropped it. Bhishma Dev at once gave up his weapons and stood to be killed by Krishna, his beloved Lord. The fighting of the day was thus ended at that very moment, and Arjuna was saved. Of course, there was no possibility of Arjuna's death because the Lord himself was on the chariot. But because Bhishma Dev wanted to see Lord Krishna take up some weapon to save his friend, the Lord created this situation, making Arjuna's death imminent. He stood before Bhishma Dev to show him that his promise was fulfilled and that he had taken up the wheel. Om Jnanatimarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukram Kotavachalang Pangundang Hayate Gurim Yatkripa Taraham Bande Shigurum Dinataranam Vanchikapati Vishta Kripa Sindhivde Vachapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we spoke about this yesterday at length, about how Krishna wanted to keep his devotees' promise. So promises are very important. When someone keeps their promise, this means integrity. One has integrity when one keeps his promise. But in this age of Kali, it's very difficult. Because honesty is, well, it's actually described as the last leg of religion is honesty. But there's one person who was famous for never telling a lie. Who was that? Anybody know? Yudhisthira never told a lie, very honest. And therefore I'm sure he kept his promises. So, when one takes initiation, one makes a promise to the spiritual master that he's going to follow the 4 regular principles and chant 16 rounds a day, which is another principle. So Prabhupada was speaking about this, and he said, any gentleman, if he makes a promise, he keeps the promise. And if he doesn't keep the promise, then Prabhupada said, then he's an animal. Animals don't make promises. Human beings, they make promises, and they keep the promise if they're actually a human being. So, when we make a promise to the spiritual master, when we make a promise to Krishna, then we have to keep that promise. Even a devotee, it's described that he would rather die than break his promise to Krishna and his spiritual master. So it's so important. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's an amazing pastime about promises. There was one elderly Brahmana that was on pilgrimage, and there was another young Brahmana on pilgrimage also. And the young Brahmana, he was a nice devotee, submissive, gentle, humble, so he decided to render service for the elderly Brahman. So he was like a servant. He treated the elderly Brahman like a guru, and he did menial service for him. Such nice service for him. So the elderly Brahmana was so pleased with the young Brahmana that he told him that you're such a nice, gentle devotee. I'm going to give my daughter to you. But now the elderly Brahmana, he was of a very aristocratic Brahmana family. And the young Brahmana, he was not so aristocratic. He was a simple, poor Brahmana, just going on pilgrimage. So the young Brahmana said, "Oh, my dear sir, please don't make such a promise, because you're from an aristocratic family, and I'm just a simple Brahmana. Your family members are going to be very upset, and they're not going to allow this to happen, so please don't make such a promise." He said, "No, she's my daughter. I give my daughter to whomever I please." So the young Brahmana understood that this is a very heavy thing to do. The family members won't accept, because although he was a Brahmana, still there's status. You know? There's birthright, there's status. So wealthy, aristocratic people wouldn't marry into poor families. The status consciousness, just like there's the caste consciousness. Yeah. So status consciousness, even here in society also, rich people don't marry into poor people, isn't it? It's very common. The status quo, right? So this young Brahmana knew that it would be a challenge. So he told the elderly Brahmana that, "My dear sir, you made a promise, so it'll be difficult for you to keep that promise because of your family members. So can I suggest that we go before the deity and you make this promise before Gopal?" He said, "Yes." So they did that. So this deity became known as Sakshi Gopal, the witness Gopal. So then they went back to their places of residence, and the elderly Brahmana told his family members about what had taken place, that he had met this nice young Brahmana whom he promised to give his daughter. They found out his status, and it was this consciousness was so ridiculous at this time that the wife of this elderly Brahmana said, "If you give our daughter to him, I'm going to commit suicide." You can imagine. He was a Brahmana. He was a nice, advanced Brahmana. But status consciousness was so high, so ridiculous, that she threatened, "You give our daughter to him and I'm going to commit suicide." So now the elderly Brahmana, he's in a predicament here. And the son also, he said, "You can't give my sister to this poor Brahmana. Come on, this not possible. It's not going to happen." And he was a pretty heavy guy. So he told the elderly Brahmana, his father, he said, "When he comes to get my sister, I'll just make up some story, and he was kind of like a lawyer, you know." A lawyer means liar, right? So he was kind of like this. So the young Brahmana came, and he went to the elderly Brahmana and said, I'm here now to, as you promised, to take your daughter in marriage. And immediately the son came up, hey, you get away from here. You're coming in, trying to take my sister. This so-called promise my father made is you gave him some intoxication. And therefore he was made to make such a ridiculous statement. And then the young Brahman, he went to the villagers and he said, just see the situation here. This elderly Brahman, he has made a promise before the deity that he will give his daughter to me, and now he's going back on his promise. So the villagers, they want to know, well, what's going on here? So they went there, and it was a big commotion. And then the son said, yes, this young Brahmana, so-called Brahmana, he gave my father some intoxication. So he was made to say these nonsense things. Why would my father give my sister to such a poor Brahmana? Unequal status. Why would he do such a thing? So they thought, yeah, why would he do that? So then the young Brahmana said, he made this promise in front of the deity, Gopal. So he can't go against this promise. He can't break this promise. Gopal is witness. Now if I go and I make this statement to the deity comes and bears witness, will you all accept? Then yeah, even the son said, yeah, we'll accept. And he's kind of like a little bit of an atheist. So, and other atheists there in the crowd, they're like, yeah, right, yeah, sure, the deity is going to come. So now this is an example of faith. This young Brahmana had such faith. So he went back to this deity and he explained, my Lord, this elderly Brahmana, he's made a promise before you and now he's breaking the promise. He's a good devotee, but he's been put under pressure from his family members. So to keep his integrity, please, my dear Lord, come and bear witness that he made this promise before you. And the deity said, just go back and think of me, and it'll be okay. It'll work out. Just go back and think of me, and I'll work it all out. And the Brahmana said, no, my dear Lord, you have to come. You have to come and you have to bear witness. This is the arrangement, that if you don't come, they're not going to accept. And the deity said, who has ever heard of a deity walking? Who has ever heard of such a thing? And then the Brahmana said, my dear Lord, who has ever heard of a deity talking? You're talking to me. Who has ever heard of this? So Brahmana made a good point. So the deity said, okay, you go, I'll follow you. Don't turn around. Don't see me. I'll follow you. You'll hear my ankle bells. So you go and I'll follow. So he did that, and they went to the village. And it's a big deity, so it's nothing that he can carry. He couldn't possibly carry it. Oh, one other thing is that the Brahmana said to Gopal that you're not a statue. You're the son of Maharaj Nanda, so you can do whatever you want. So again, he was defeated. So the deity, Gopinath, is not the statue. Srimati Radha, they can do whatever they want. They can also talk. Just like there's one pastime of Prabhupada in Los Angeles. where they have the deities Rukmini Dwarkadish. And Dwarkadish spoke to Prabhupada. You go back to India and I'll arrange nice temples to be built. And Prabhupada said, but I came here to preach. He said, that's okay. You go there, you preach there also. Preach. Preach there, preach here. So in that order, by Dwarkadish, Prabhupada left. He was planning on just going to America and just staying there and preaching. He had been there for 5 years. He went back to India for a short time because he had a stroke. And he came back, and his preaching was his Prabhupada Desh. Just preaching in America. But he got this instruction from Dwarkadish, spoke to him. So the deity is Krishna. Not some statue, not marble, not metal, not wood, but Krishna. So we hear in this amazing pastime of Sakshi Gopal. So when all the villagers saw this Gopal deity there, they were like, wow. They were astounded, like, wow, the deity has come. The deity walked, and the deity is still there in India. Sakshi Gopal. Anybody know which city? Do you know? Where? Which city? Do you know? No, but there must be. Huh, around Puri. Okay. I wonder how far he walked. Be interesting. From Vrindavan to Puri. That's a walk. That's a long walk. Wow. That's a long walk. But for his devotee, he did it. You imagine how ecstatic the young Brahmana must have been, that the Lord speaking to him, and he's following him to bear witness. So then they finally got there, and everybody's like, wow, the Lord has come to bear witness. So then it was clear. And the elderly Brahmana, you can imagine how ecstatic he must have been that the Lord came to bear witness. So that kept his integrity, that what he was saying, it was true. And he, of course, he gave his daughter to this young Brahmana. And it's not that Prabhupada mentions that, in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that, it's not that the young Brahmana was attached to having this girl as his wife, but he wanted to keep the integrity of the elderly Brahmana. The elderly Brahmana always wanted to give the daughter, but the problem was the family members. So it must have been with great shock that the atheistic son saw this Gopal deity bearing witness. So integrity is a very important thing that we should all try to acquire if we don't already have it. In Kali Yuga, it's very difficult. In Kali Yuga, everything is difficult. Prayana payupasava, kalavas min yujagana, manda samanda matayo manda bhagya yupadrutaha. This age of Kali, men are short-lived, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Age of Kali. It's a terrible, terrible age. But there's one good quality of this age. Kalir doshanid he rajan, asti heko mahadguna. Kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sangha param vijay. That although this age of Kali is filled with many, many faults, just like one devotee was telling me, that within the past 4 years, or the Prime Minister has been kicked out like 3 times. And it's illegal. You can't just do that. But they were so disgusted with the leader, they just kicked him out of the office and put somebody else in there. So hard to find. Just like in America, we have this so-called leader. There's so much complaint. So throughout the world, it's like that. Not just with America, not just with Australia. There's no good leaders throughout the world. Of course, now in India, finally we have Prime Minister Modi. He's probably the best leader in the world right now, because he's the only one, the only leader that's stopping cow slaughter. In Gujarat, it's completely illegal. And now in other states also, it's becoming illegal to kill the cow. In every other country in the world, no problem. No problem. So, the one good quality of this age of Kali is that simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, we can become completely purified. Just like this young Brahmana, this simple young Brahmana, he was very pure. Because the Lord reciprocated with him, spoke to him, and went on pilgrimage with him, through India. So we can also become pure. But we just have to take this process very seriously. If we chant the holy names of Krishna, just like Ishvara Ishra Prabhu was reading this morning, that when Draupadi was in this very unusual, uncomfortable predicament where Dushashan was trying to take her clothes off, strip her clothes off. But she's a lady, and Dushashan is a kshatriya. So she was trying to keep him from taking her clothes off. What hope is there? So then she finally took shelter of Krishna. And she's holding one hand, and she's calling out, "Hey Govinda! Hey Govinda! Hey Govinda!" But then he was still pointing, and then she just totally surrendered. Both hands up. "Hey Govinda!" calling out. So it's described, we read this morning, that Krishna, he's obligated. He was obligated. He was obliged to help Draupadi, simply because of her calling out the name of Govinda. So similarly, we're calling out the name of Krishna. So we have to call out with feeling. We have to call out with feeling. And Krishna will also give his mercy. Now that's very interesting with Draupadi, that she completely surrendered. Therefore, we have this, in America, in the cowboys, remember the cowboy movie, you put your hand up, surrender, they put the gun behind that, surrender, put both hands up. So that's surrender. So Draupadi did that, she put her hands up, surrender. So Krishna reciprocated. And therefore, for the first time ever, and probably since then it's probably never happened, that Krishna incarnated as a sari. That was an incarnation of Krishna, a sari. So therefore Dushashan was pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. And there was no end to this incarnation of Krishna in the form of a sari. So this is Krishna. He can incarnate in any way. It's amazing. He can incarnate as cloth. Pretty amazing. So we also have to learn to call out to Krishna, and he will help us also. We need help. There was one devotee who was asked by a karmi on Harinam, what does this Hare Krishna mean? And the devotee said, it means, God, please help me. And I thought, wow, that's a very good definition of the Hare Krishna mantra. God, please help me. Because we need help. We all need help. This material world, it's a param yad viparam natesham. It's a very dangerous place. Danger at every step. Yeah. A very dangerous place. Not only danger at every step, danger at every roll. It's like in America, believe it or not, on average, about 600 people die every year from rolling off their bed. So not only danger at every step, you got to be careful when you roll over. Material world. Believe it or not, Devamrita Swami, he rolled over his bed one time, many years ago, and he broke his arm. Put in a cast. So it's a dangerous place, material world. So we have to learn to take shelter of Krishna. And then, no matter what dangerous situation there may be, we'll take shelter of Krishna. I'll tell you an amazing story of one devotee. She went through some difficulty. It was initiated by Prabhupada, had some difficulty, and she left. She married one karmi man, and she never told him that she was a devotee previously. So they were married for about 10 years, and they're driving. She's driving, California, in the Bay Area. So she's driving maybe, 70 miles an hour, and they get in a crash, and the car is rolling, and she's chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, just chanting, just screaming, Hare Krishna, just screaming. And the car is rolling. And the car finally stops. And they're both like, are we alive? And they're like, we're alive. And they weren't harmed. They had their seatbelts on. Somehow, they weren't hurt. And they were both shocked. How is it that we're alive? And then the husband said to the wife, what were you screaming? What was that? And she said, oh yeah, I never told you. I used to be a Hare Krishna. And he just saved us. That's why we're alive. He just saved us. So the husband said, oh, tell me more. So they just sat there, and she preached, and she preached to him. And of course the ambulance came, and fire trucks came, and everything. Because it wasn't the only car, there was other cars involved also. So after that, she got back into Krishna consciousness. And he also got into Krishna consciousness. And he got initiated. And they became book distributors. So this is Krishna. Yeah. Krishna protects his devotee, even though she had given up Krishna consciousness. Still, Krishna had an eye on her. And Krishna protected. So this is Krishna. He protects his devotee. Especially if we chant helplessly. So she was chanting like this. Her only protection she knew was Krishna. And Draupadi also, she knew, my only protection is Krishna. So we have to chant with this feeling. It's like this one great devotee, Queen Kunti. She prayed to Krishna, Janmaisvarya Shutashivir Edamana Banapamang Naivarhatya Vatatunvai Tomakinchana Gochana. She says to Krishna that you are very easily approachable, but only by those persons who are materially exhausted. But those persons who desire high birth, opulence, education, beauty. They cannot call out your name with feeling. Only those persons who are materially exhausted can call out your name with feeling. The Prabhupada said our process is simple living. We live a simple life. High thinking. We don't need anything extravagant. Yeah. Simple life. Yeah. We're floor dwellers. Yeah. We sleep on the floor. We sit on the floor. Simple life. Simple prasadam. We don't need much. Yeah. So this, therefore, we're able to chant with feeling. But what's really interesting about this verse, it's spoken by Queen Kunti. Now she had all of these things. She had high birth. She's a queen. She was born a princess. She was born the daughter of a king. So she was she lived her life as a princess. And then she became a queen. So very high birth, great opulence, very wealthy. You can imagine she must have been very wealthy, very educated. You know, she is the only Mataji that has a whole chapter in the Srimad Bhagavatam of her realizations of Krishna consciousness. Very educated, very opulent, high birth, and she was a queen, a princess. She must have been very beautiful. She must have been very attractive. So she had all four of these. But she could still call out the name of Krishna with feeling. So it's not an absolute rule. But in general, people who are free, who don't have these things, or are materially exhausted, it's easier for them to chant the names of Krishna. And even many wealthy devotees, they renounce wealth. They renounce opulence. And this helps them in their devotional path. Just like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, they were multi-millionaires. Rupa Goswami had a boatload of coins, gold coins. Not these Aussie coins, but gold coins. You have gold coins, but they're not real gold, right? But he had a boatload of gold coins. Just renounced everything. And there's one Christian, probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous Christian, Saint Francis of Assisi. He was the son of a very wealthy man. But he accepted the vow of poverty. He rejected wealth. And all of his followers also. They lived a life of poverty. Just traveling around and preaching. And Jesus Christ also, he was poor. You know, lived under a different tree, just like the 6 Goswamis. They had no residence. They lived a very simple life. So, to live a life of lack of extravagance is very good. Yeah. Nowadays, everybody wants to be wealthy. Everybody wants wealth. Isn't it? But what is real wealth? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya, he speaks the wonderful Shikshashtaka. These are the only written words of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But in between those verses, there's also very nice verses. So Lord Chaitanya, in between those Shikshashtaka, one verse he says that my dear Lord Krishna, I don't want wealth. All I want is to be able to serve you with devotion. I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact. All I want as salary is love for you. Yeah, just like people are working. They're working for money. So Lord Chaitanya says, all I want as salary in my service to you is love for you. So this is what a devotee wants. Yeah. We just want to attain love for Krishna. Yeah. Material wealth is nothing. And therefore, there's a nice pastime of Sanatana Goswami and one worshipper of Lord Shiva. This worshipper of Lord Shiva, he was worshipping Lord Shiva with the aim of getting great wealth. So he was performing great austerity, so much so that Lord Shiva appeared before him. And he said, what is it you want? I'm pleased with your austerities. He said, I want wealth. I want wealth. I want a lot of wealth. He said, okay, you want a lot of wealth? Then go to Vrindavan and you speak to Sanatana Goswami. So he did that. He went to Vrindavan and he asked around, where is Sanatana Goswami? And they directed him to Sanatana Goswami. And he paid respects to Sanatana Goswami and he said, I'm a worshipper of Lord Shiva. And I pleased him. I want wealth. So Lord Shiva said to go to you. And Sanatana Goswami said, do you want material wealth or do you want spiritual wealth? So the worshipper of Lord Shiva said, I want material wealth, a lot of wealth. He said, okay. You see that pile over there? Garbage? In there you're going to find a touchstone. And any iron that you touch with that touchstone, it'll become gold. So the man was like, whoa, very happy. Whew. So when he found this touchstone, and he paid respects to Sanatana Goswami, and he went off. He became very wealthy. Big mansion, servants, so much opulence for years. Very wealthy. But he wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. You can't buy happiness. So then he started thinking, that's sadhu, Sanatana Goswami. He kept this touchstone in a pile of trash. Like it's nothing. Like it's trash. Maybe he has something that will actually bring happiness to me. So he went back to Vrindavan with his touchstone. And he told Sanatana Goswami, I became very wealthy with this touchstone. For years I was living in great opulence and wealth. But my heart wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. You kept this touchstone in the trash, like it's garbage. Do you have something that can actually bring happiness to me? So Sanatana Goswami said, yes, but first, that touchstone you have, throw it in the Jamuna. So he did. And he went back to Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami initiated him into the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. So then he happily chanted Hare Krishna. Then he found the real wealth. Yeah. That's real wealth, to have devotion. By chanting Hare Krishna, we attain devotion for Krishna. This is real wealth. So any question or comment? Correction? Yes. How to have the feeling that I've been speaking about while chanting Hare Krishna. Well, Queen Kunti, another famous verse, she says, Vipada santita sasvat tatra tatra jagat bhavato darshanam yatsat apuna bhavadarshanam. She prays to Krishna, please Krishna, give me calamity. Give me difficulty. Because when difficulty comes, then I take shelter of you. And by taking shelter of you, I overcome the repetition of birth and death. So, that's one way to get feeling. If we're living a comfortable life, Prabhupada said, then advancement will be very slow. If we want to live a life of comfort in Krishna consciousness, advancement will be very slow. So therefore devotees accept austerity. It's very good. It's like you distribute books, right? So book distributors don't have to pray for calamity. It comes automatically. So that's good. You continue distributing books and the feeling comes. Yeah, it's very good. Book distribution is very healthy for our devotion to Krishna, to bring out that devotion. Because book distribution, it's all about prayer. We have to pray. If you don't take shelter of Krishna, if you're not praying to Krishna, it's very difficult. Therefore you have to always be praying to Krishna. Please help me to be an instrument in your hands. Help me to understand I'm a spirit soul. I'm part and parcel of you, my Lord. Everybody here is part and parcel of you. Please give me compassion for these souls. It's constant prayer. Yeah. Help me to understand how small I am and how great you are. So, you continue distributing books and the feelings will come. Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.